Most of you must be fans of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. I bet you've marveled at the breathtaking landscapes showcased in those films. But have you ever wondered where they were shot? Well, let me enlighten you. It's none other than the beautiful country of New Zealand. Ah, New Zealand. It's known for its kiwi fruits, rugby, the mighty haka, and so much more. However, it's disheartening to learn that this thriving nation is currently facing its worst crisis ever, a recession. Yes, you heard it right. In the first quarter of 2023, New Zealand witnessed a 0.1% contraction in its gross domestic product, GDP, following a 0.7% decline in the previous quarter. In today's video, we're going to delve into how New Zealand found itself sleepwalking into this economic crisis. We'll explore the underlying causes and how they can come out of it. But before that, we would like you to subscribe to the channel for more updates. Remember Jacinda Ardern, the head of state in New Zealand who showed the world how to tackle COVID? She did an amazing job curbing the virus and keeping people safe. But guess what? Even she didn't see it coming. New Zealand was not out of danger. The post-pandemic bubble burst and, oh boy, things took a turn. Jacinda Ardern left her office and the crisis erupted. New Zealand was one of the first countries to start raising interest rates after the pandemic. They went ahead and increased their main interest rate to 5.5%, outpacing the US Federal Reserve. Well, one of the main causes of the recession is these post-pandemic interest rates. Let me explain it in simple terms. Higher interest rates had a big impact on the housing market. In fact, average house prices in New Zealand have dropped by around 18% since reaching their peak 18 months ago. That's a significant decrease. Moreover, people faced difficulties in mortgage repayments and the cost of loans soared. While the interest rate hikes had already put a strain on the economy, nature had other plans for New Zealand. The country experienced devastating flooding in Auckland and was hit by Cyclone Gabriel, which caused widespread destruction. The impact of these natural disasters was unprecedented. In Auckland, floods trapped people on their rooftops, displaced thousands of individuals, and landslides destroyed homes. It was a catastrophic situation, unlike anything officials had seen before. According to government data, approximately 55,000 homes in Auckland are prone to flooding, while another 76,000 homes across the country are at risk due to coastal erosion and rising sea levels. The agriculture sector, a significant part of New Zealand's economy, was also heavily affected. The cyclone and flooding took a toll on food-growing regions. As an example, half of the kumara crop, a type of sweet potato grown in New Zealand, was wiped out. It was a devastating blow for farmers and the agricultural industry as a whole. In addition to the direct impact on individuals and communities, the collapse of infrastructure designed to prevent river flooding added to the destruction. For instance, orchards were buried in mud and potentially toxic silt, causing further damage and loss for farmers. To respond to the crisis, the government swiftly announced a $300 million New Zealand dollar, $185 million package to support the affected regions. These resources were aimed at helping communities recover from natural disasters and rebuild their lives. However, it's important to recognize that the toll on government resources and the economy as a whole was massive. New Zealand heavily relies on agriculture, with the sector contributing 5% to the country's GDP. When such a significant portion of the agricultural industry is disrupted, it has a ripple effect on the entire economy. In addition to the challenges posed by natural disasters and interest rate hikes, other factors further exacerbated the situation in New Zealand. Declines in horticulture and transport services, along with reduced education services, played a significant role. Furthermore, the impact of global inflation on food prices had a substantial effect on the economy. Grocery food prices soared by 12.7%, while fruit and vegetable prices surged by 18.4%. This led to a cautious approach among households regarding their finances. Rising food prices meant that consumers had to allocate more of their budgets to purchasing essential goods, leaving less room for discretionary spending. It's worth noting that during this period, there were protests by New Zealand teachers who were unhappy with the high food prices and demanded increased wages. As a result, schools were closed during the protests, causing disruptions in the education sector. The closure of schools and the subsequent disruption in the education system impacted students, families, and the overall community. Additionally, other small businesses reliant on the education sector, such as tutoring services or school suppliers, also felt the consequences. While the impact of these events may not have been as significant individually, they collectively contributed to the overall state of affairs and had implications for the stock market and the economy as a whole. But what happens in New Zealand doesn't stay in New Zealand. It can actually affect other countries too, like Australia. You see, New Zealand's recession is having an impact on Australia and its big four banks, which see New Zealand as a sort of crash test dummy for their own economy. Let me break it down for you in simpler terms. Both New Zealand and Australia are facing similar problems. They have high inflation that hasn't been controlled despite raising interest rates aggressively. People in both countries have big mortgages because house prices have been growing fast for many years. Plus, the job market is strong, which means wages are going up. While the average person in New Zealand hasn't reached the point of worrying about losing their job, Australian banks are concerned about how the New Zealand Central Bank can handle a slowdown without hurting the job market. You see, most people in New Zealand have fixed-rate mortgages, which means the interest rates they pay don't change as quickly as in Australia, where most mortgages are variable. But here's the thing. The combination of fixed-rate loans and rising house prices during the pandemic is causing problems for the economy and Australian-owned banks in New Zealand. People who bought homes when prices were high now have to switch to new loans with much higher interest rates. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand says that almost half of borrowers might end up using half of their income just to pay the interest on their loans. And a shocking 13% of borrowers might have to use more than 70% of their income for interest payments. The good news is that the big four banks in New Zealand are well prepared and regulated. They know the risks involved in the property market, but they still need to be careful because small businesses in New Zealand rely on the property market too. If the property market goes down, it could have bad effects on those businesses. So far, the number of people struggling to pay their debts and falling behind on payments is low, mainly because job security is high. But this could change depending on what the Reserve Bank of New Zealand does to control inflation and how it affects jobs. Because New Zealand and Australia are so connected, especially when it comes to banking and property, it's important to keep a close eye on the situation. Anything that happens in New Zealand could affect Australia and its financial world. To overcome the challenges posed by the cyclones, teacher protests, global inflation and price hikes, New Zealand should prioritise a multifaceted approach. Firstly, the government should allocate resources towards disaster preparedness, reinforcing infrastructure resilience and enhancing emergency response systems. Simultaneously, they should provide substantial support to the regions affected by natural disasters, helping communities rebuild and recover. To tackle inflation and price hikes, New Zealand can implement measures such as monitoring price increases, intervening if necessary, and promoting price stability for essential goods. International cooperation is vital, as the country should actively engage with other nations to address global inflationary pressures collectively. Additionally, the government needs to address the concerns of teachers and find ways to alleviate their grievances, ensuring fair wages and exploring solutions to ease the financial burden on educators. Diversifying the economy, promoting sustainable agriculture practices, enhancing financial literacy for households, and supporting innovation in emerging sectors are also key steps to fostering economic resilience and navigating through these challenging times. In short, we want this beautiful country to continue captivating us with its stunning landscapes in films like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, while delighting us with its famous kiwi fruits and thrilling rugby matches. However, above all else, our greatest desire is to see the people of New Zealand and their economy thriving and happy. If you like the video, do subscribe to the channel for more updates. We will catch you in the next one. Bye.